I was either in 7th or 8th grade when this happened. It was a hot, humid summer evening in the Midwest in one of those true crime story towns. You know the kind where everyone knows everyone and nothing bad is ever supposed to happen. The sun had just started to set when my softball game ended. My little sister had already gone home with my dad, and as the field cleared out, my coach offered me a ride. I turned him down, not because I had a better option, just because I was a self-conscious kid who didn't like accepting any help. Easily one of the dumbest decisions I've ever made. I figured it wasn't a big deal. I lived across town, and I had my bike. Sure, it was getting dark, but I didn't think much of it. I packed up my gear and started pedaling home alone. A couple blocks in, I rounded a corner and noticed a beat-up car trailing behind me. At first, it didn't set off any alarms. It's a small town after all. But they stayed behind me for another block, and then another. They weren't speeding or honking, but they also weren't passing me. I glanced back. In the car were two college-aged guys I did not recognize. Which was odd because when your town has a population of around 500, strangers stand out. And the nearest college? 40 minutes away. Still, trying to play it cool, I gave them a polite, awkward smile. They didn't smile back. They just stared, expressionless, cold, focused. That's when my alarm bells really started ringing. At the time, I was obsessed with true crime stories. I remembered a tip. If you think someone's following you, try circling the block. If they stay behind you, they're not just going the same way. I didn't have a phone back then, so that little trick was the best thing I had. I tried to calm myself. You're being paranoid, Star. They're just trying to get home too. But my gut said otherwise. I took a left turn, then another, then one more. They followed every single time. My heartbeat spiked. I kept pedaling, scanning the houses for one that looked familiar, for someone I might know. The guys never tried to pass, never honked, just followed silently, steadily. When I rounded the final corner to complete the block, I dropped the act. Subtlety wasn't going to save me anymore. I pedaled as hard as I could. They sped up too. That's when I saw a house I recognized. Someone I barely knew, but it was my best shot. I raced to the yard, jumped off my bike, and left it on the grass. I looked back. They had stopped right across from the house, still staring. I chose the side door instead of the front, hoping it would seem like I lived there. My hands were shaking as I grabbed the screen door. I flung it open and wedged myself behind the main door, calling out, "I'm home," loud enough for them to hear. I don't know why, but that did it. They sped off. I didn't move until I was sure they were gone. Then I ran to the backyard and hid behind a bush, heart pounding in my chest. I must have stayed there for 15 minutes, though it felt like an hour, before I left my bike behind and snuck home, ducking behind trees and parked cars whenever I heard an engine. When I got home, I told my dad what happened. He didn't believe me, thought I was just making up the story to cover why I ditched my bike, so I never reported it. To this day, I still don't know who they were or what they wanted. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe they never tried anything like that again. But to those two strangers who followed a kid through a dark neighborhood, matching her every turn with their dead-eyed stares, let's not meet again. I'm not a people person. I'm an introvert with a resting bitch face and a don't talk to me aura that could curdle milk. So why? Why are all the weirdos always drawn to me? I begged God, Goddess, Allah, Buddha, and the flying spaghetti monster for answers. I'm convinced there's a giant, invisible neon sign flashing over my head that says, "Here's your soulmate." But only for creeps, social rejects, and potential serial killers. My friends are well-meaning but utterly clueless friends that help track me down. I begged them not to hand out my contact info, but the second the nutjob smiles at me, they're like, "Aw, Salty made a friend," and hand over my phone number like a raffle prize. My friends suck. Anyway, back to 1994. I was a teenage figure skater competing in a local event in Tulsa. I had just finished my program and was sitting on a bench waiting for my scores, sweaty and exhausted, when the rink guard came over and said, "Salty, there's a man outside who wants your autograph." What? I was an amateur. No one asked us for autographs. You're kidding, right? Nope. He says he's a fan. Saw you skate in Houston and Fort Worth too. At the gate, there's a man holding a spiral notebook, maybe in his mid-30s, blonde, decently dressed, not bad looking, but his eyes, ice blue and locked on me like a hawk, not blinking, no expression, just staring. "I'm Clay. I really love your Star Wars spotlight. My niece skated 2 hours ago, but I stayed just to watch you. I saw you in Houston and Fort Worth." Okay, that was weird. That program I just skated to wasn't the spotlight. That was a separate costume event where I performed as Darth Vader. Yes, full helmet, cape, everything. How did he even recognize me? Still, trying to be polite, I signed his notebook. "To Clay, you're my first ever autograph. Thanks. Best wishes. Salty." He kept going on. "I'm a Star Wars superfan. You don't see it much now that the trilogy's over. Chelsea and I were thrilled when you skated out. Did you win?" "Yeah, I did. How did Chelsea do?" I looked around, but no kid seemed to be with him. "She got bronze. Chelsea is my niece. She went home with my sister." "Did you win both times? We thought you were so brave to skate in a Vader mask." Okay, the both times thing was unsettling. "Yes, I did. I hope Chelsea had a great skate." "We didn't like the girl who skated to the Beach Boys. She wore a bikini." He was still staring, not blinking, just judging. "Oh, Jill? I thought she was brave, honestly. The swimsuit made me cold just looking at her." I was trying to steer the convo somewhere neutral, but no. "She shouldn't have worn that in front of little kids." Right, time to wrap this up. Well, I'm glad you liked my number. Thanks again. Enjoy the rest of the competition. Have a safe trip home. I'll be back tonight to cheer you on." "That's really kind. My results should be up now. Gotta check, excuse me." "I'll wait to see how you did. Show me your medal." I sped walked to the results board. Silver medal. Not bad. As I'm catching my breath, my friend Nathan, another skater from Dallas, comes over. "Devin said someone asked you for your autograph. Look at you, turning into a star." I laughed. More like a local nutcase. Says he's a super fan of my Vader program. He's coming back tonight too. Then it happened. "Salty! Salty!" Everyone turned back to look. Clay came down to the far end of the rink, waving his arms over the rail. I held my medal awkwardly, trying to play it cool. "Yay, Salty!" he shouted. I was dying inside. Later that evening, Clay left a message for me at the registration desk with his phone number. He called the competition hotel, left voicemails inviting me to dinner with him, his niece, and her parents. I ignored everything. Thankfully, the hotel never gave him my room number. But 3 days after I got home, he sent a package to my skating rink. Inside were two 8x10 photos. One was a blown-up image of me in the Vader costume, mid-performance. The other, a Photoshop medal stand from the U.S. National Championships, where he had cut off Nancy Kerrigan's head and replaced it with mine. Scrolled, "Salty, 1994 Olympic gold medalist," across the top, and drew a giant heart around my face. That's when I started getting scared. I dealt with a real stalker back in high school, someone who made my life hell for years. But calling the cops now? Clay hadn't done anything illegal, yet anyways. 4th of July weekend rolled around, and my skating rink hosted its annual competition. Clay showed up again, waited by the registration desk, then pounced. This time, my husband was with me. Clay went off screaming about our connection, calling me vulgar names, accusing me of using him, lying about being married, cheating on my husband with him. My sweet, gentle husband almost decked this guy when he grabbed my hand and pointed out I wasn't wearing a wedding ring. I don't wear them when I skate. Security finally stepped in. They tossed him out and warned him not to come back, said that they'll call the cops if he did. Then came the final letter. He sent a nasty note to the rink accusing me of enticing him, leading him on, and planning to use him. I'm just done. Oh, and the second weirdo? Not dangerous, just delusional. Got a crush on me literally a week after my husband died. Apparently, that's the perfect time to shoot your shot. But that's another story for another day. Anyway, Clay, let's not meet ever again. Have you ever looked into the eyes of someone truly insane? I'm not talking about someone who's a little offbeat or quirky. I mean someone whose mind has fractured so deeply, it shows in their eyes. Cold, hollow, and terrifying. I have, and I'll never forget it. Let me back up. I'm going to keep this vague for obvious reasons, but some background is necessary. I worked for a large corporation, and while I report to multiple supervisors, I formed a general friendship with one of them. Let's call him Jeff. Jeff is the definition of laid back, funny, easygoing, single, no kids. He'd often swing by my desk to chat, and over time, we became good friends. About a year ago, he stopped by my desk one morning, and I immediately knew something was wrong. His usual energy was gone. He looked tense, distracted. I asked him what was going on, and he told me he needed to talk to me about something serious. He began explaining that several years before I started working there, a woman, let's call her Lauren, had been briefly employed by the company. She wasn't in our department, but occasionally interacted with leadership, including Jeff. Their conversations had always been brief and professional. She left the company less than a year later, announcing she was getting married and moving away. That was the last he heard of her, until weeks before this conversation. Out of nowhere, he received this request from Lauren on Facebook. Not thinking much of it, he accepted. He was connected with many past colleagues. They messaged back and forth a bit. She told him that she was divorced, planning to move back to town, and asked if he'd join her for dinner during a visit. Jeff politely declined. That's when things took a turn. He stopped responding after turning her down, and soon after, she flooded his inbox with erratic, insulting messages, calling him a wimpy bitch, claiming he ruined his only shot at happiness, etc. He showed me some of them. They were intense and unhinged. Thinking she was just drunk and emotional, he blocked her and moved on. Or so he thought. Then came the emails, first to his personal account, then to his work one. Pleas for a second chance, emotional breakdowns, love confessions. I'd later help him print these out and organize them as evidence. The reason he was telling me this particular day was because he had just received a message from Beth, Lauren's sister. She told him that Lauren had become mentally unstable after her divorce and had fixated on a man, Jeff, claiming he was her soulmate. Beth tried reasoning with her, but Lauren was obsessed. And now she was back in town. She had flown in, booked a hotel near our company, and was planning to visit Jeff at work. And then it happened. Jeff walked into the office one morning and found Lauren waiting outside his door. She ran up and hugged him, clearly drunk. He could smell the alcohol. She told him that she was there to get her old job back and needed to see him. She handed him gifts, snacks, gift cards, and pictures of herself. He declined, but she pushed them into his hands, insisting he kept them. He managed to excuse himself and went straight to HR to explain everything. He made it crystal clear that he did not want her hired again. He also gave me a copy of the pictures she left, asking to alert security if I saw her again. It didn't end there. Beth later sent Jeff a disturbing photo Lauren had sent her, dressed as a man, claiming it was her disguise so she could watch Jeff without him knowing. And for the next year, things spiraled. Lauren returned to our town multiple times, leaving letters on Jeff's car, often nonsensical. Once, she left 2 identical letters, one handwritten in cursive, one printed, word for word. She created new emails every time Jeff blocked one, sent rambling love confessions, claimed that she made him her beneficiary of her life insurance, sent emails pretending to be other men in love with her, begging Jeff to release her so she could love them instead. Eventually, she somehow got his personal phone number and began calling and texting constantly. Each time he blocked her, she found a new way. It finally led to court. Jeff was granted a protective order, and for a while, the chaos stopped. He started acting like himself again. We all hoped it was over, until this week. Monday morning, Jeff stormed over to my desk, furious and shaken. He demanded to know who placed a stack of letters and homemade Valentine's cards on his desk. I had no idea what he was talking about. We found out later that Lauren had shoved them under his office door. The housekeeper had found them scattered all over the floor, and unaware of the situation, neatly arranged them on his desk. Even worse, we had no idea how she had gotten inside the building. Later that day, Jeff called me, his voice full of panic. She's here. He had opened his office door to find her standing there, grinning. He slammed the door, locked it, and called the police, then called me to warn me that she was on the premises. I foolishly thought that she would have fled once he mentioned the cops. I was headed down the hall to check on him. I stopped in my tracks. There she was, sitting cross-legged on the floor outside Jeff's office, quietly humming to herself. She slowly turned her head and looked at me. Her eyes were empty. No light, no humanity, just hollow darkness. Her lips curled into a slow, eerie smile, and then she turned back to Jeff's door, continuing to hum. I ran, full-on sprinted back to my desk. The police arrived shortly after. She didn't resist. She stood calmly, still humming, and walked away with them, as if nothing was wrong. She's currently in jail for violating the protective order. Jeff and I are both still shaken to our core. I'll never forget the way she looked at me. That slow, unnatural smile and those lifeless eyes. It felt like she was staring into the abyss, the kind you don't come back from. It was New Year's Eve 2020. I just finished a shift at a sports bar restaurant I worked at downtown. I'm a female, and at the time I was 26. I had been serving there for about 2.5 years. After clocking out, I headed to a nearby bar where a lot of other service industry folks in the area like to hang out after work. While I was having a drink, I noticed a familiar face. A man who was a regular at my workplace. I'd see him multiple times a week for as long as I could remember, but he always sat at the bar, so I never served or spoke to him. He was middle-aged, always quiet, well-dressed in business clothes, just one of those regulars who kept to himself. After I passed him, I greeted him casually. "Oh hey, I see you at my workplace all the time." Totally innocent, just a passing hello, not meant to start a whole conversation. But things got uncomfortable real fast. He looked at me and said, "I've been watching you for the past 3 years." He went on to explain how he would sit at the bar and watch me while I worked. He told me he worked in an office across the street and that he even watched me from his window as I walked in for my lunch shifts. Honestly, can't remember everything he said. It started to blur, but he kept emphasizing how long he had been watching me and how he'd waited so long to talk to me. For the record, I only worked there for 2.5 years, so not 3, but sure, buddy. Then it got even weirder. He told me that he was planning to propose to me on his 53rd birthday. Yeah, you heard that right. A man more than twice my age, who had never spoken to me before, apparently had plans to ask me to marry him. I remember he also asked me where I lived. I gave a vague answer, not wanting to share any specifics. At some point, I mentioned that I might not be working there much longer, and his response generally chilled me. Well, don't go anywhere I can't find you. The next time I worked, I told my manager what happened. She went to talk to the bar manager, asking about the guy. The bar manager's response? Oh, he's harmless. The dismissal honestly pissed me off. It's like some regulars can say anything they want to staff, and the management will still brush it off like it's no big deal. He's harmless, as if that made the whole thing less creepy or threatening. Thankfully, 2020 being the way it was, the city shut down all the restaurants for a couple months, so I didn't have to keep working there much longer. I haven't seen the guy since, and I really hope I never do. I know the story might not be as terrifying as some others on the sub, and honestly, I've had plenty of creepy things said to me while working in the service industry, but this moment was a wake-up call for me. Just because someone seems quiet and polite doesn't mean they're not watching. To preface this, I'm currently 19, turning 20 soon. When I was in 3rd grade, I had a vindictive teacher who manipulated my grades just to make me repeat the year. All because I called another student a brat for crying about wanting to be in her mom's class. The context isn't that important, but basically, the girl thought she could cry her way into her mom's classroom. Her mom was a high school teacher, and the kid would throw tantrums until she got her way. I snapped and told her that she was too old to be crying for her mom and disrupting class. Harsh? Maybe, but she was clearly spoiled, and I guess the teacher didn't like that I pointed it out. Anyway, fast forward to August 2023. I was in my junior year of trade school, studying graphic design. That's when I met James, a sophomore. He noticed that I didn't get dropped off at our home school like most students and offered to drive me home. I barely knew this guy. We'd talked a few times, but we weren't close. I told him that my mom wouldn't be okay with me riding in some random guy's car unless she met him first. Plus, since I was 18, if he got into an accident, I'd be legally responsible as the adult in the vehicle. After that, he backed off for a while. We still talked, and I started picking up on the fact that he probably wasn't neurotypical. It wasn't until my senior year that things got generally creepy. We exchanged numbers because I helped him with homework sometimes and gave him horror YouTube channel recommendations. Think Reddit stories, creepypasta, or creators like Hannah the Horrible or Nexpo. Within a month, he somehow found out where I lived, even though I never once told him. He got off way earlier than me, and our homeschool was arranged by region. Students from the west side of Fontaine went to one school, while those from the east went to another, so we shouldn't have even had a clue. That's when I started documenting everything. If I'd fall asleep on the bus, he'd tap my headphone, snap them against my ears, kick my leg, shake me, or call my phone just to get my attention. It became relentless. In April, he asked me to prom. I told him multiple times I wasn't interested, but he kept trying to manipulate me. I finally lied and said I had a family event that night. Later, I reported his behavior to the principal because he wasn't just bothering me, he was pressuring and shaming other students into going with him too. He gave the most insincere apology, clearly only doing it because he was told to. The next day, I got a call from him asking if my sister drove a red car and worked at the coffee house. I told him no and immediately blocked his number. After that, things escalated even more. He would call me and ask me if I was home, at work, or at the Dollar General. He told me disturbing things, like violent fantasies about hurting his mom's boyfriend, smashing his teeth in, or wanting him dead. He smacked his own phone against the bus window in rage. He tried to manipulate me into calling him during a panic attack. He went on a rant about my math teacher, saying she should be gutted, and that women are ugly and horrible vessels for producing babies. The worst moment? He lost his earpods, started foaming at the mouth, and stomped on the charging case in rage in front of everyone. I went to the principal and the school liaison again, but I couldn't even speak without breaking down. They yelled at me for over an hour, accusing me of being mean to a kid on the spectrum. They even justified his behavior by saying, my information, my mother's, and my sister's is public anyway. I had a full-blown panic attack. I was throwing up in the trash can in the conference room while calling my mom. She was absolutely livid. She told me to contact the sheriff's office as soon as I got home. When I did, they took it seriously. The sheriff went to James' house and told him to back off, otherwise I'd be well within my rights to press charges for stalking and harassment. A local women's shelter later confirmed that the way the school handled this was not just wrong, it was dangerous. Thankfully, I haven't seen him since. His number is still blocked, and I'm praying it stays that way. And James, if by some miracle you're reading this, stay the fuck away from me and my sister. I hope your future commanding officer learns everything you did. Yeah, that's right. This guy wants to be in the military. If I ever see him again, I will press charges. I don't care if it ruins his life. He is a danger to everyone around him, and possibly to himself. This happened just 5 days ago, on a Saturday, and I still can't stop thinking about it. For context, I'm a 16-year-old French boy living in a small town near Paris. I was hanging out that evening with my 17-year-old friend, a girl, like we usually do. Just sitting on the big rocks behind our town's kindergarten, eating snacks and talking. It was around 8 p.m. The sky was starting to darken, and we were facing a big beet field that stretched along the edge of the town. Now, nothing really happens in our town. It's quiet and kinda isolated. The only big thing that ever made the news was when a father stabbed his wife and daughter 40 times. Not connected to my story, but it gives you an idea that shocking things are rare and deeply unsettling when they do happen. Also, there aren't many foreigners around here. It's a small, close-knit place. So we were just sitting there, talking, eating, and chilling, when I spot someone coming towards us. A man. He's wearing a beanie, hands in the pocket of his sweatshirt, walking directly at us. He was way too close for us to get up and leave without making it obvious. He comes right up to us and starts speaking in English. My friend doesn't speak English, so she had no idea what he was saying, but I do. He notices that and immediately tries to shake my hand. I refused. He didn't seem drunk or on drugs, just off. Then things got weird. He points behind me towards the field and insists, "Is that cabbage?" Now, to look where he's pointing, I would have had to turn my back to him, but I could already see part of the field to my left without turning around. So I told him, yes, it's cabbage. It wasn't, but I just wanted him to go away. He didn't accept that answer and kept insisting, repeating the same question, trying to get me to turn around. The whole time, he was standing less than a meter away from me. It was incredibly tense. He could have done anything in that moment. He said strange things like, "My driver told me there was cabbage." I asked people, but didn't understand. Then he patted my shoulder, and that's when I really started to get nervous. He walked behind me and crouched on the edge of the field, again telling me to come look and check if it was cabbage. I already told him multiple times that it was. Again, it wasn't. I was just trying to shut it down. As soon as I felt like we had some space, I turned to my friend and said quietly, "Grab your bag, run." At first, she thought I was joking, but when she saw me take off, she followed. We ran about 20 meters away before I glanced back. He was walking in our direction, slowly, but then vanished behind one of the kindergarten buildings. We were shaken. We said goodbye and quickly split up, each heading home in different directions. I had to pass the elementary school next to the kindergarten to get home, and that's when I saw him again. He was back, coming down a small road between the field and the kindergarten school, phone in hand, screen lit up. It was like he was tracking something. I didn't take my chances. I turned and ran straight to my friend's house. Her dad ended up driving me home. That night, we talked about what happened and realized it could have been something much darker. Maybe attempted kidnapping, maybe something to do with trafficking. The fact that he didn't speak a single word of French was weird on its own, but his whole act seemed like a setup. That cabbage thing felt like a trick, just a way to isolate one of us or make us move out of position. Later, I told my friend who lives in our town what had happened, and he said he'd seen the same guy earlier that day, wandering around and acting strangely. We're both okay now, but the whole experience really rattled us. Sometimes I wonder if we were overthinking it, but my gut told me something was very wrong, and I've learned to trust that instinct. To the man who tried to trap us with a weird cabbage excuse, let's not meet again.